Uta here. My bouquet is there, and the young Ut is there, and this embroidery was actually done by my father, who didn't have any gender confusion at all. He did not have any ideas that he was supposed to be female, and he's both of my parents, my mother and father, are smiling down from heaven because I'm going to talk about children now. So, yeah, I think the first line of defense, we really have to call this line of defense. And your first line of defense is to be as nosy as you can with the school, find like-minded parents, and I would say figure out who is based like you in terms of the parent groups, and kind of avoid play dates and a lot going on with any families where you've got somebody who's ideating an opposite sex persona. Um, and it's awkward because, of course, we know that children will go around repeating what we say, and they might say, I don't believe in this. I have a feeling what we have to do is um, we have to kind of caution them to, people have different beliefs. It's religious, and we believe this in our house. And I think it's really important to have as much physical activity and movement that explores what your bubble is around your body. I have started thinking about the terminology, and that I would like to call it the bubble of bodily integrity. And of course, for adults, I would say the sphere of bodily integrity. And um, if you watch, for example, a couple of my movement videos in the Wellness Movements playlist, then uh, if you can envision, me in a bubble doing these movements and then, reaching and kind of pushing my bubble a little bit bigger, stretching my bubble, and I'm trying to think. I'll in my next one, if I think of a more child-friendly phrase than the bubble of bodily integrity. But body integrity is something that we were trained in the early childhood teaching world, and the classic time when I really wanted to make sure my students understood that was when there was a boy. He's one of the ones who actually ideated for maybe 2 weeks that he's supposed to be a girl because he wanted to differentiate himself from his older brother. But he had some liquid glue dried on his hand, and he started thinking that his skin was peeling off. And then I had a little lesson about how uh, we shouldn't get alarmed, um, that some part of us is going to come off. And uh, I really doubt that they teach that. I mean, I even had a couple of books, like a big book that was my first week of school reading for both pre-K and kindergarten back then. And it was called I Am Me. And it had, real simple language, and it was just I am me and I like me, and I have, these body parts, and this is my torso, and this is my head, and these are the things that are inside of my body, and I have to sometimes cut off my fingernails, but that's the fingernails and the hair are the only things that are going to come off. So I think that if you give your child a good grounding in what is pretend and what is real, then they're ahead in their bodily integrity. And I think that doing mind body oriented movement with your child and all kinds of outdoor activities, growing things in the natural world, and and I remember, for example, I told my sons that I didn't want them to get their ear pierced. And the reason I said that was because I actually didn't want them to get a tattoo. So I figured they might break the rule about getting their ears pierced, but then they would think twice before getting a tattoo, which is kind of against the regulations in traditional Judaism. Um, and another thing to do is to say, I will always tell you the truth. And it's important to make a child have a sense, to give the child a sense of what I'm ready for, what I'm ready to learn, and what's for the future. And I remember my parents saying, well, that's for when you're older. If I asked some kind of question that seemed to be related about sex or something like that. Um, and I think you have to really kind of overtly um, tell your child that out in the world, there are people who have ideas that we disagree with. And we don't have to get upset with them. We don't have to contradict them. We can just let them think the way they want. And it's not our job to change their mind. But one of the principles that we believe in our family is that if you're a boy, you can't change it. Um, and I would say never bring up disorders of sexual development because that is always conflated with the psychiatric illness of the ideation of an opposite sex persona. Uh, and I'm just trying to really formulate some principles, to give parents. Of course, your child needs you to get down on the floor and play with them. Play blocks, play if you need to just tape up some small boxes from packaging and things and make your own cardboard blocks. That's perfectly acceptable. Um, and help your child to start doing some writing and drawing and to tell stories. Like, I think it's important to tell stories and differentiate between this is a story from my childhood, the first day of kindergarten, I didn't get to go, this is real, because I had a fever. And I kept going up to my mommy and saying, put your hand on my forehead. I think my fever is gone. I don't want to miss my first afternoon of school. I had afternoon kindergarten. And then figure out making up some stories about animals and animals that are, changing and turning into something else, and then make it clear that that is pretend, that is a made up story like a fairy tale, and that unicorns and mermaids and whatever other fictional animals are part of fiction. They are not real. I just saw a very good interview with a very based father on a channel called Odin's Men. And this father had a difficult time with his teenage daughter, and she went into this not from her own fantasy. She had some mental health problems, was having suicidal thoughts and had to be hospitalized a little bit. Oh, now it is raining harder. Yeah. And in that setting, immediately the first thing they asked her, is how do you identify? I'm just going to show you the rain. But he said to her when she started wanting to get on testosterone and saying, I want to get rid of my breasts and things, he just said, I love you. I will always love you. And right now the answer is no. And I've already had times when you thought you wanted to be something else, times when you didn't want to do our family routine, times when I think she had said she thought she was a lesbian, then she said she thought she was bisexual, then she started having boyfriends. I think that going, with adolescence, to go into the changes, the biological changes, as high a level of science in this as possible. Now, this is going to be it for this video. I'm going to show you the garden through the window, and it is really raining again. We're just having a quite rainy day. And so I'm going to just leave that there if I can figure out. You can see it's not really showing it very clearly, but there are the dahlias and where am I? Up here it's sweet peas growing up to the top of the fence. And get yourself and your children outside. Be sure to have genuine, authentic conversations. Very important. Be well always. Enjoy the outside and count the butterflies.